One of the things that I'm always looking for in VR is something really, really new. I want to have a new experience. I want to play something that I've never played. I want to do something that nobody's ever thought of, because that's what VR is to me.
As a fan of VR, even, aside from playing them or anything else, that's one frustrating thing about it, is that the genre that is present in VR is so repetitive often. You get lots of horde-based shooters, you get lots of escape the rooms. Like, there are 4 or 5 different types of games that seem to define VR to an extent. So I always like to see something fresh and new as well.
That's the thing. They're always just kind of the same thing, and they're never particularly interesting. Well, how about a top-down tower defense game where you control placing the towers, but you can also decide to become an avatar on the ground fighting hand-to-hand and beating up bad guys one-on-one?
Okay, I was not that excited when you said top-down tower defense, but when you say you can teleport to the ground and start whacking people, or animals, whatever it is, that's amazing. I like that part.
You get to be the main weapon in your world. So there are other games that have done this in the past in the non-VR world, where you get to have an avatar and run around being essentially a mobile tower in the tower defense game.
The majority of tower defense games that I played before is kind of more hero-based, and you don't get to actually take a first-person view. So I am interested in this because I've never quite played a tower defense game like that. It's always just been, I build up until I can, unlock a hero that comes onto the field and fights for me, but I'm still in sort of a god mode type position, just building stuff while that happens. Being able to actually take the role of fighter and go down there in a first person view is super cool.
It is super cool, and it's a lot of fun because it's still the familiar tower defense game where you get money for killing bad guys and you use that money to build towers. But you get to go down there and really feel in the middle of everything by bashing or shooting or putting down landmines or whatever to take out the most difficult bad guys that your towers perhaps cannot handle.
Right, and it also seems like it would encourage you to think strategically, because if I'm down on the ground hitting people and killing, monsters or, the horde that's coming at me, then I also have to keep in the back of my mind, I need to get back up top and build stuff too, or, they might overrun my defenses in another area. So I bet it's a really hectic but enjoyable mental experience too.
Yes, you've got it exactly. There's a lot of tactics to this, especially on later levels. The first couple of levels are pretty simple, as they are in a tower defense game. You've got one place that they're going to be coming from, and you just kind of have to hold that choke point, especially because as the avatar you play, you are ridiculously powerful. Everything's essentially a one-hit kill, or maybe a 2-hit kill. There's not a whole lot that you have to do, and they don't attack you in any way. You are an omnipotent being. You're Sauron down there just whacking people left and right and throwing them up in the air. So you're pretty much unstoppable, which is why you have a timer. You can only do it so often. It is a power-up. You have to wait for it to come back, but with some smart use of it, you'll find yourself having no problem on the easy levels whatsoever.
Yeah, I don't like the idea of you being basically invincible, but I guess the timer does correct that, because it's not like you can just go down there and dominate. You can only be there for a set amount of time, so I'll excuse the invincibility.
And the thing is that as invincible and powerful as you are, you still have to count on your towers doing a significant amount of damage. Otherwise, you're going to be overrun, especially on the later levels. The later levels are really difficult. You have to plan. You have to perfectly put things where they need to be to keep the bad guys at bay. Because in some of these levels, you're going to find that no matter how many towers you put up, there is one way that they can still sneak through, and maybe only 1 or 2 will ever go that way. But that's 1 or 2 that if you don't have one of those power-ups saved up, you're going to just let them walk through. So you have to do a lot of planning. Okay, I see 30 guys are coming this way, but there's 2 guys going that way. Do I waste my power-up and go down and kill the 30? Or do I go take care of the 2? Can my towers handle this? You've got to plan that out. Plus, every single time you go in, your weapons are slightly different. So, whereas you might have had a wide scatter shot type of shotgun in one level, Now maybe you've got a long-range, explosive-tipped crossbow that can do a lot of damage to one bad guy, as opposed to doing a lot of damage to a lot of people.
And you don't have any control over that? You can't decide which weapon you want to use for each level? It just gives it to you as like part of the level?
It's part of the challenge. So you've got to take all of that into account. It's a mental gymnastics game as much as anything else.
I can absolutely tell that. And, you know, even when I said the invincibility thing was kind of like, meh, for a second, it's like, I know that there's not a single moment in this game that you're going to be doing something that you aren't already thinking about what you need to do next. And that's what makes tower defense games great. And to see that implemented in VR is, like you said earlier, it's fresh, it's new. I have not seen this.
Exactly. And it's super neat. You've got different kinds of thinking going on, whether it be, you know what, I'm going to use my ability as fast as possible so that hopefully I get it back a little bit later and I can take out the next wave that's going to come on the sneaky side path. Or, you know what, no, I'm going to hold on to it the whole time and I'm really going to build up my defenses in this core area here. And then whenever I see anybody on that side path, I'm going to jump over there and take them out. And the levels get big. A lot of levels get really big. This is one of the things that I've always wanted to do, is to have a real-time strategy defense, tower defense game in VR. I think it would be super neat. And you know what? It sure is. It's super neat. It's a lot of fun. It's also very stressful.
For sure, I could definitely see how it would be.
Now, there's one problem with this game, and it's probably not the kind of problem that you would expect, but it's something that we should talk about. And that is the fact that this game is by no means easy on your computer. This is an exceptionally labor-intensive title. You need a beefy PC to play this, because I tell you what, while I was recording, just in the lobby area, I was experiencing some stutters. And I have a pretty beefy PC, but I thought the game was broken at first.
Yeah, and you normally don't experience that. Like, when's the last time that you can remember that you were having frame drop issues or stuttering issues? I mean, it's got to have been a really long time.
I legitimately cannot think of the last time I experienced it. So when I had that, especially in VR where you need 90 frames per second for yourself not to get ill, and I am somebody who does get ill in VR games, having that drop down to 20 frames per second, and suddenly I was not feeling healthy. I powered through it, and as soon as I got into the game world, nothing was wrong, but there's something going on there where you're going to need a powerful PC or you're going to be experiencing those stutters, and that sucked.
Well, hopefully they can get the optimization issues fixed, because from my understanding, becoming ill in VR is a pretty common thing, more common than people might think, and that would just be the worst reason to not play a game. Like, if you find it fun, but all of a sudden you feel woozy, that would just be so disappointing, especially when you see a game that looks this great. So hopefully they can do something to optimize it. I'm not sure with VR developers what potential there is for optimization in regard to, like, in a comparison to non-VR titles, but is that something that could happen?
This is an Unreal Engine game, so there's no reason that they can't do a lot. I want to see the menu immediately. They hid the menu somewhere. I couldn't operate in the lobby. To this day, I can't operate in the lobby because it is too labor intensive, and if you're going to do this, you need to be able to get immediately to the graphical settings, because I guarantee you that changing the graphics would have made this a lot easier on my PC. Yeah, it would have been less pretty, but you know what? That's better than getting sick. And I couldn't find the menu because I couldn't spend the time in that lobby area with the low frame rate that I was experiencing. It made me too ill. I had to get out of it, and I jumped immediately into a game. So I want to be able to get to that menu immediately. It's got to be the first thing I see, needs to be immediately there so that I can set it down. Or just set the settings, the automatic settings, to low, and let me know that there is a setting over there that I can change. I've seen that done in some games recently. I think it's a smart idea. The default, immediately on low.
Yeah, and then if you do decide that you want to play it on a higher resolution, you can do that yourself. But you're also making sure that your viewers don't become sick, which is very, very important.
Yeah, that's the thing. So I was feeling that, and I feel like that's the only complaint I had about this game. Is that, yes, it's super neat, it's pretty, and it really is pretty. It plays well when you're in the game. But when you get those stutters, when you get those frame drops, you're going to wish you were dead.
To be clear, though, in the game, that did not happen. You didn't feel sick in the game, right? It's just only in the lobby.
I didn't feel that in the game at all. The motion is good in the game, the gameplay is fluid, and you've got a lot of room scale movement that you can do, so that was really neat. It was exclusively in the menus, which might sound weird, but they obviously did too much there, or they did something, or there's just something not being done right there. And I'm sure that what they really wanted was for you to jump in and be just overawed at the beauty of their creation. And sure, it sure is a beauteous creation, but it was killing me. And thankfully, the gameplay wasn't like that, or I would have shut this down and I would have not even talked about it. I would have sent them an email and said, I can't play your game. Like, it just would not have been good. So, I'm glad that they didn't have that, but give me the lowest possible settings so I can set it. Tell me that I can change the settings and that this is low, or put the options immediately front and center, because that was the worst possible first impression that I could have had with a game.
Right. Two very easy solutions to a very easily solvable problem that will go a long way with people that hop into this for the first time.
So this is an early access title. It is being sold for $14.99, which I believe is a completely fair price. This is worth that price. It is absolutely worth it. I think that you're going to get more than $15 worth of gameplay out of it. It's beautiful. It's fantastic. They've just got to fix this one little problem that I had.
I've recommended games for $15 before that didn't look as cool as this, so I definitely have to say that I think this deserves $15. That one problem aside, of course, but you know, with that caveat, I certainly would recommend it for that price.
How about you guys? Have you ever wanted to play a tower defense style game in VR? When I sat down and I created a game in my head, it was kind of like this, a little bit different, but kind of like this. I felt like this was the type of title that I really wanted to play, because I think it fits into VR really well, to be the overlord looking down over a battlefield and being able to place units and things. I'd like to see a little bit more fleshed out in this, whether it be upgrading the towers or creating more mobile towers, sort of like yourself, because it does get really hard later on, and I can see a lot of value in having some cool new stuff instead of the basic just couple of things that they have. But again, it's early access, so they're probably going to add that in over time. It's worth a pickup to me, so let me know if you've ever thought about a game like this in the comments below. If you like it, like it. If you don't like it, don't like it. But if you did like it, why don't you go ahead and watch another one up there in the corner, and as always,
We'll see you guys on the next one.